Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today, and I just did my champion review of 2022. You guys can find the video linked down in the description if you're interested, but that of course means it's time now for me to do the 2022 skin review for this year as well this week. Now this is going to be a longer video, so definitely make sure you guys have a drink, make sure you're nice and relaxed, and we are going to go ahead and talk about all of these skin lines released this year. Now, there are a few caveats. Obviously, it had to have come out this year. I left off last year with Debonair, so I'm not going to be talking about anything that came out after this video goes live. I'm only going to be talking about skin lines with 3 or more skins. Those with 2 or fewer, there's just not that much for me to really say. There's not that much I can really do with that. So 3 or more. I'm not going to touch on esports skins. I want to focus on the skin lines that Riot has full creative control over and champion selection over, because I think that's where feedback is actually relevant. And I don't want to talk about prestige or limited availability skins, because their quality in my eyes is significantly worse due to Riot making them hard to get, and I feel like I couldn't be fair with it then. To touch on prestige real quick though, I do like the new approach that Riot made to make them about high fashion instead of just gold-plated versions of existing skins. It makes them actually feel slightly unique and interesting in a way to show off bling. That said, I think that they're still finding their footing with this. Prestige Empyrean Cassante, for example, I think is just garbage. I don't know, it doesn't have anything to do with the original base concept. Conversely, Prestige Space Groove Nami is incredible and has everything to do with the original concept. So I think Riot are still figuring out their footing on that, but I'm not going to talk about those in this video today. But with all those sort of qualifiers out of the way, let's jump all the way back in time to the beginning of this year to talk about the first skin line released in the last year, which was Porcelain. Now, you'll hear me talk about this a little bit throughout the rest of this video, but Riot are increasingly trying to find ways of replacing their sort of generic skin lines, their Halloween or Christmas or summer skin lines, with something that's a little bit less obviously holiday or themed around the specific time of year, and a little bit more generic, right? Something that you can ideally use all year long and not feel like if you're using it outside of summer or outside of winter that it doesn't make any sense. Porcelain is the skin line that Riot are trying to create to test the waters and see if they can replace Firecracker and or Lunar Rebel, which are their Lunar New Year skin lines, because they're trying to find something that both the East and the West can enjoy and appreciate equally. Porcelain is their new attempt at this. They've previously tried Mecha Kingdoms, which totally bombed, and Lunar Beast, which totally bombed, and Porcelain is the next iteration of this, and honestly, I think it's a little bit of an interesting concept because I think it's got the entire breadth of the Chinese Zodiac to come up with and make designs for, but I think all the designs we got this year are pretty terrible. The Lysandra design I think is great, and I love that she's getting a prestige version of the Porcelain Lysandra skin, but everyone else, I just feel like the designs weren't very inspired, and the particle effects were just a little too soft for me. I don't feel like they really had the hard edge to make them interesting, and increasingly, I have no idea why the Ezreal got a legendary. Porcelain Protector Ezreal is like the most wasted legendary I've ever seen. I have no idea why this was worthy of a legendary treatment versus like any other skin that you possibly could have done for Ezreal. So I'm unsure how popular these were. I've seen basically no Porcelain skins since the first month they came out, but that said, Lysandra is getting a prestige version of her skin, which I would assume then means that Porcelain theoretically could come back at some point. We'll see. I think it was a mediocre concept overall. If it comes back, fine, but if it goes away forever, also fine. We also did get Firecracker skins this year. It comes back seemingly every year, and I don't know why Riot are trying to replace it. I think it works well enough as a Lunar New Year skin line that everyone can enjoy. I do feel like the designs this year weren't particularly inspired. There are only so many champions that can get away with Firecracker particles, for example, but I think Set and Tristana were 2 good choices that they were able to use this year, but like Teemo, Xinjiao, I really don't know why they were included in the skin line this year. The skin line is, like, fine overall. I like that it comes back, and I think it works well enough that they don't need to experiment, but I also don't think it's particularly intriguing, but definitely one that if it came back every year, I would never complain about. Crystal and Withered Roses also came back this year following Firecracker, and I figured these were going to come back with how well the previous Roses skins were received, but this year's inclusions were just not very inspired. The previous ones, where we had Swain and Zyra and Syndra, they felt like high fashion, but with a magic touch. You got the sense that, yeah, these people are dressed up very nice, and they're attending a ball of some sort, but you also know, just looking at them, that it's a magical ball, and these people are wizards, and they have some kind of magical prowess behind it, and that this ball is going to involve magic. magic, right? You get that sense just looking at the original designs. The ones this year, though, they just feel like the champions are in fancy clothes, and that's it. Zeri, in particular, I think is just completely wasted. I have no idea why she got a Withered Rose skin, other than she was releasing at about the same time, and Riot liked tying their new champions into a skin line. I just don't think the concept works very well on Zeri. And Elise already has Death Blossom. Yeah, I don't know why Riot forgot that, but she got a skin too. I mean, even Akshana and Janna, they're fine, but they're just those champions, but in fancy clothes. They don't really work with the concept in the same way that Swain and Zyra, I feel, did in the previous year. So as a result, I think the concept has enough legs that it can come around a third time, but I think Riot really need to pick better champions for it this next time around. Shockblade then came out this year, and this was a really interesting one because previously only Zed had a Shockblade skin, and honestly, these skins make Zed look like the weird one instead of the original Shockblade, which is kind of funny. But I kind of dig these. It's an interesting concept. I feel like it's a little bit weird on Kiana, theming a champion or a character who's all about Elementalist, about specifically lightning. That was a little bit odd, but I like the idea overall of having these sort of Thunder-themed skins, and it has a little bit of overlap with the Dragonmancer, Lee Sin, and Aurelion Sol skins as well, so there's a little bit of sort of thematic resonance and thematic synergy there with those other two. The very limited release of these skins makes it hard for me to tell how popular it was, but I definitely wouldn't mind seeing this one come back because I think it has some legs. There are definitely some more things that Riot can do that's creative with this. Following Shockblade was my favorite skin line of this year, probably, which is Bees. And I've said it once, I've said it again, and I will always, always, always harp on about this, but I don't care how many times Riot brings back the skin line. It's extremely fun, because there's no such thing as a champion that doesn't fit. The, jankiness and the stupidity of the skin is what makes the skin line fun, right? Pick any champion, make a bee pun with their name, and no matter how inappropriate, flavor their particles and their weapons and their armor and everything about them with bees. It doesn't matter how poorly it fits, just do it, and it works. And the absurdity is why the skins are just so fun and why I love seeing them, because you just don't have to take it seriously. And I think Riot have too many serious skin lines, and having something that's a little bit more lighthearted is just so fun, and I absolutely love it. The one weird one this year was Orbiana. I don't know why she's a sexy bee robot. Well, I know why she's a sexy bee robot. It's because Riot thinks sex appeal is required to sell skins. And I feel like they could have leaned more into the hilarity with Oriana instead. But, the others are so great that I don't really care. You can have your sexy bee robot, Riot. That's fine, because Heimerstinger, Bziggs, Nunu, and Beelam, they're all great. And I hope this just keeps coming back. I love it. To follow Bees, though, was a terrible skin line, and this was Anima Squad. If you guys recall, this was the reimagining of the Battle Bunny skin line, and honestly, it doesn't really do anything with the concept. I really get the sense that Riot were trying to find a better way of doing Battle Bunny in a way that didn't involve putting champions in literal, bunny girl costumes, though admittedly, I would pay good money to see Silas running around in a literal bunny girl costume. That would be hilarious. So the idea, though, to make it this sort of anime protagonist skin line, but everyone's dressed like animals, but Riot isn't going to push the visual designs hard enough to make them actually look like the animals they're supposed to be aping, so instead they're just anime protagonists. They didn't take the concept far enough for me, right? Like Silas, for example, he's the battle wolf Silas. He doesn't look like a wolf. There's nothing about him that resembles a wolf. His skills have nothing to do with being a wolf. He's just a wolf because Riot said, well, everyone has to be animal themed, so you're a wolf now. Same with Jinx. Why is she a battle cat? No idea. There's nothing about the design that says she's a cat. And I think that if Riot had made them into anthropomorphic animals, they would have had a better sell on this, to sort of lean into the absurdity of, yeah, anime team to save the day, but also they're all like anthropomorphized animals. That would have worked for me, but I think that there were just too many competing themes, and Riot didn't really know what to do with the skin line, and it felt like one that's just launched half-baked. For that matter, the Misfortune Legendary just felt super lazy. As with Porcelain Ezreal, why was this worthy of being legendary? I just don't understand why. And I've seen very few people use any of these skins outside of the MF Legendary, so I'm hopeful that this skin line is just dead and buried where it belongs. To follow Anima Squad was Arcana. This came back, and I think it's just as good as the first time it was released. If you want to do the tarot breakdown, I know Riot have said that it's not technically official, but Zaya and Rakan are the lovers, Ryze is the magician, Ahri is the high priestess, and Hecarim is probably the chariot, if I had to guess. They have great particles. I think all of the champions were interesting inclusions and work with the tarot, which is one of the thematic resonance points of the Arcana skin line. Ahri felt a little forced to me personally, but generally, they're good all around. I'm not the biggest fan of the skin line, but I love seeing these, so definitely if Riot want to do more of them, I'm certainly happy to have them come back. To follow this, I want to touch on an unofficial skin line that was released this year in the form of Canon skins, which is something that Riot used to do back in the day. Queen Ashe and King Tryndamere, for example, were Canon skins back in the day, as was Tyrant Swain. They no longer are because the lore has been retconned so many times, and that old universe where those skins were created doesn't exist anymore. But I'm really happy to see Riot are doing more Canon skins this year. We got Gangplank the Betrayer, Sea Dog Yasuo, and King Viego. GP the Betrayer is his Ruined King appearance. If you play that game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Sea Dog Yasuo's lore explains where he was and what he was doing during the Ruination, why he didn't become a Sentinel of Light, which I thought was a great way of explaining that away, given that he fought against the Ruined King in the Ruined King RPG. And King Viego lets us see Viego, what he looked like during his human years. And I think these are all really exceptionally cool and made cooler by their canonicity and by the fact that their designs work in the canon. And I would love to see Riot do a lot more of these, especially something like a, pre-Ruination Callista, right? That would be a really, really cool skin for us to see. And I think that those skins are more on the table now that Riot have done these canon skins this year. To follow these up, we had the Eclipse Knights. I was interested to see this finally expand out to a full skin line. We only had Leona previously, and I think it's kind of a neat skin line. I think Aatrox and Sejuani are excellent inclusions into the skin line as these sort of big, heavily armored knights. And I think the Sivir skin is a bit of a weird choice, but I think Riot found a way to at least partially justify it, and I think the legendary status on this skin is somewhat warranted because Riot did enough with it to say, yeah, Sivir, this is why Sivir works in the Eclipse Knights universe. Senna, meanwhile, does not deserve to be here. This is probably my least favorite skin of the entire year. She does nothing with the concept. She's only here because Riot said Senna needs to get a skin. I think it's absolutely garbage, and if you deleted it from the game, I would be that much happier. We also finally got Sun Eater Kayle with the skin line, which was incredible. I think this is one of Kayle's best skins ever. We've been needing a Be Not Afraid skin for Kayle for quite a while, and making her an Eldritch Being too is icing on the cake. And I'm generally warm towards these skins, and I wouldn't mind seeing more, honestly. I think the inclusions this year were pretty nice. High Noon came out next. There were a ton of these, and I'm pretty cool on High Noon in general, and only about half of these skins this year were any good at all. I feel like Riot have a habit of picking champions that just don't fit the High Noon aesthetic, and then crowbarring them in regardless, and that's basically where we're at with like half of the roster. Varus, Sion, and Victor are of particular note here. I don't know what they're bringing to the skin line. It feels like Riot said, well, we're doing High Noon, and you have to be in it, so Varus, you're a cowboy who has a bow, I guess. That's what we're doing. Sion, you're just like a big dude with particles that don't really work, right? Like, I just don't know why they're here. I think there were some good inclusions. The Legendary Leona, like, blew my mind when it was revealed. I think it's absolutely incredibly crazy good. And I like the takes on Mordekaiser and Samira as well. But I just feel like there were so many just duds in this year's High Noon crop that it just has made me a lot cooler on the concept overall. It goes to show that less is sometimes more. I would love to see less High Noon, but making sure that when it does come, that all the champions that are included are relevant to the aesthetic. So I'm fully expecting to hate it the next time it comes back, but at least this year had a couple of good ones that I did enjoy. To follow up, we hit our summer skins, which were Ocean Song this year. As I mentioned before, this feels like an attempted replacement for Pool Party, but I feel like it misses out on why we all liked Pool Party. Pool Party is like bees in its simplicity. We're here for champions flavored as bees, irrespective of how appropriate they are for that aesthetic. Or, in this case, we're here for champions wearing swimsuits and armed with pool noodle weaponry, right? Like, that's the enjoyability of the Pool Party skin line. That's why we're here. That's why we're spending money on these skins. Ocean Song, meanwhile, is trying too hard. It's trying to be, like, pretentious with it, right? It's like, well, it's summer, and they're champions in swimsuits, but it's not just a pool party. They're at a music festival on the beach, and that's cool, and these characters are artists or something. It's too highbrow for that concept, right? Like, I'm just here to see champions in swimsuits, man. That's why I'm here. I don't care how you want to fluff it. Just do Pool Party again. Seraphine, this skin line feels custom made for Seraphine, so her skin in particular works with Ocean Song, but the rest of the inclusions are completely arbitrary. Ashe in particular is just like, why is she here? I have no idea. And I haven't seen anyone use these skins outside of the Seraphine one. The Zeri one doesn't count because it's her first skin post-release, so of course you're going to use it. So I'd be surprised if Ocean Song came back, honestly. And honestly, good riddance if it never comes back. To follow up the summery skin line, we had a wintry skin line. in Snow Moon. And Snow Moon is just bizarre. First, the time of year it was released in. Why is this coming out in the middle of summer? And second, this feels like Riot didn't want to do Blood Moon again, a skin line that's been very popular historically, and instead they said, well, let's do Blood Moon but halfsies. Let's do Snow Moon. And it's kind of Blood Moon, but kind of not, and I just don't know what they were going with, honestly. It feels completely arbitrary. Caitlyn doesn't do anything with the concept whatsoever. I like the idea behind Kayn, where you have the Snow Moon in conflict with the Blood Moon, and Kayn has to choose a side, and each of his forms represents one or the other. Like, that's totally fine, but I don't get the skin line. Maybe that's a me thing, but I think that skin line was a complete whiffer. It had a tiny release. I've never seen, like, any of these skins. I don't know why I would care. Like, just make more Blood Moon, Riot. Don't bring this back. To follow up on Snow Moon, though, we had our arguably biggest release of the year, which was Star Guardian. We got, like, 10 or 12 Star Guardian skins this year, which is a crazy number. Riot really went full bore on these, and I'm not normally a fan of Star Guardian, but it feels like Riot tried a little bit harder than normal with this year's offerings. Some of these feel pretty inspired and do fun things with the aesthetic. Rel, Quinn, and Talia, I think, are exceptional. I think the legendary Akali does a couple of really cool things with the concept, and I think Akali as a Star Guardian is an interesting idea, right? A ninja magical girl. It's kind of a neat idea, but the other half are just so boring. They feel so safe. They play it so close to the chest with, like, what Star Guardian is supposed to be about, that they don't push forwards and expand the boundaries of what it's allowed to do and what champions are allowed to be a part of it. It just feels like we picked all of the safest possible inclusions and made the safest possible design for them and left it at that, right? Like, Star Guardian Echo, Star Guardian Sona, Star Guardian Neela even, they don't do anything with the aesthetic outside of, is a Star Guardian, and we did this as close to the, like, default Star Guardian as possible. It just ends up being really boring. Conversely, I think the best thing to come out of the Star Guardian skins this year was the Star Nemesis skins. I think they stole the show. They are super, super cool concepts, and Riot executed both of them extremely well. And just the sheer volume of fan art I saw of the Star Nemesis in particular over on Twitter is, like, crazy. Like, people loved this. In comparison, the Star Guardian skins were almost like afterthoughts to the Star Nemesis skin lines. So in that regard, if Riot wanted to bring back Star Guardian, I don't know who they would do for it, honestly, when they released so many Star Guardians already. If Star Guardian came back again, whatever, but, like, please do more Star Nemesis. I love them so much, and I would love to see more of those. To follow Star Guardian was probably the worst skin release of the year, which was Monster Tamer. This skin line was dead on arrival. I think Riot picked 3 unpopular champions for the skin line and said, good luck. And to be fair, the concept itself is mediocre at best. There aren't a lot of champions that have pets, which means that Monster Tamer is especially difficult to do in a thematically resonant way, right? So, like, Lulu, for example, has picks, and you could theoretically flavor that as Lulu being a Monster Tamer on her own. Conversely, if Zatma is on his own, you don't get the sense that he's a Pokemon. You get the sense that it's like a lightning-themed Kog'Maw skin where he looks kind of chunky and anime for no reason. You don't get the concept, right? And Veigar, I think, is terrible. I have no idea why he got an inclusion at all. Nothing about Veigar says, oh yeah, he's a Monster Tamer. No, he's not. He's like a punk Veigar, which maybe that would have been cool, but the skin line was just completely left on its own. Riot didn't even remotely try with this one, and as a result, it did terribly, and I would never expect this to come back, unfortunately. I don't even know how they would fix it if it did. To follow up Monster Tamer was another lackluster skin release in the Steel Valkyries. What have people been complaining about for years? Too many sci-fi skins. What did Riot do this year? Release another half-baked sci-fi skin line that fails to justify its own existence. Lucian being here again is just a slap in the face. I have no idea what differentiates Steel Valkyrie Lucian from Pulsefire Lucian from Project Lucian. He just has so many sci-fi skins that anytime Lucian shows up, it's not fun, it's not unique, it's just like, why? Why is he here? Camille, Nasus, and Janna also fail to do anything with the concept. I personally like the Nasus skin as a one-off skin, but I don't know what it has to do with the Steel Valkyrie skin line. Especially when you look at the Steel Valkyries we had before, the issue is that nothing really unified them, right? Like, all of these skins were sort of existing on their own, and the only thing that they shared in common was women in powered armored suits of varying degrees. And as a result, I think the skin line is just too scattered to do anything with. So even though Camille and Janna theoretically do the concept, they are women in powered armored suits, they just don't feel like there's any degree of consistency between all of the inclusions, and as a result, it's just a sci-fi skin line that we just sort of say, we don't care about this at all, right? So, if these weren't dead on arrival, I really hope they are following the event and that Riot never try it again. To follow Steel Valkyries was Zenith Games. This was just another bizarre release. It's like sci-fi sports players. We have no idea what game they're even playing. It feels like the Striker skins, but somehow even less inspired. I think it's okay in concept, but I just have to wonder how you represent champions playing sports while fighting in a game of League of Legends. Jace in particular, I think, was just a terrible choice. This skin line was dead on arrival as well. I've seen no one use these, and for absolutely good reason. Fright Night came to follow Zenith Games and save us from the cavalcade of mediocrity, and I love these skins, honestly. They were supposed to be a retrain of the Gothic skin line, and I don't think they capture what it was about Gothic that made Gothic interesting, but I do think it's an exceptionally cool skin line on its own. This Nightmare Before Christmas aesthetic was an excellent choice, and being able to represent sort of everything from Addams Family to Friday the 13th is just like a phenomenal range for the skin line. You can make a serious, scary skin, or you can make a very lighthearted, creepy, but not, creepy in a lovable way kind of skin like they did with Fright Night Nautilus, which I think is just like such a good range for a skin line to be able to have, and it's absolutely perfect. I really, really want this to come back next year, and I even hope this replaces Bewitching, because I think Bewitching has some issues, but we'll talk about this here down in a little bit. Moving on to Spirit Blossom, which, look, we all knew Spirit Blossom was coming back at some point, and I think the second release has done an equally impressive job as the first. I think the set Legendary feels exceptionally well done and suits the character quite well, and I think each release playing with the general alignment of the canonical character is super delightful. Like Soraka as in Arcana, who is sort of a bad person because she tries to keep you alive even at the expense of yourself. Syndra and Evelyn, therefore, as good spirits, Evelyn being like the spirit of release. I think it's just a great way to play with champion motivations in an interesting way. Even the champions that felt a little off for Spirit Blossom, which are York and Master Yi, I think they still justify their appearance in the release, and they still do enough with the concept to show that they should exist here. I think the biggest flaw with this year's release, honestly, is that there wasn't an event for them. But besides that, I think they're all incredible, and they've justified a third release of Spirit Blossom in my eyes personally. To follow up Spirit Blossom was Bewitching, and this is like the exact same thing as Bees and Pool Party, but instead of saying, making the champion a swimmer or making the champion a bee, it says, make the champion a sexy witch, which is just dreadfully uninspired. It feels like Pool Party and Bees, right, which at least have the comedy factor of, oh, look, Draven, he's got inflatable axes, oh, haha, isn't that funny? These skins are just lazy. All you do is add some purple and orange particle effects, and a witch hat, and a boob window to your favorite female champion, and that's it, right, you're done. That's all these skins ever do, and it's just so boring. Batnivia, I think, is an adorable concept, and I think she justifies her skin, but the rest of them just are... They're just lazy, quite frankly. Fright Night absolutely can and should replace them. To follow up Bewitching was Empyrean, and this was one of the bigger skin releases of the year. Riot did a lot of promotional material. There was the animatic, there was the song, there was a lot of press surrounding the Empyrean skins, and I think that conceptually the Empyrean skin line is really cool. This sort of alternate dimension neon champions whose bodies are constantly decaying, but that they have like limitless power to do what they want in the meantime. I think it's just like a really neat idea that's dramatically unique from anything else we've seen so far. But that said, there's basically no way for the in-game skins to actually live up to that promise. When you see the skins in-game, it's basically just the champion in a black morph suit with neon paint on them, right? There's nothing that actually shows what Empyrean is all about with the champions when you see them in-game. There were a couple of the champions that I think did a good job of this. Vex and Zac, personally, plus the Pyke Legendary. I think they live up to the promise of the thematic, but I think the rest are just kind of arbitrary, especially Cassante. He does not fit the aesthetic in any way, shape, or form, but he got in anyways. It's terrible. So all that said, I think the particles and sound work are still really cool. I love the concept, and I think there were some designs that work very well, and I think there are some more designs to follow these up with that would also work very well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a second wave in the future, and I kind of want to see a second wave, because I want to see Riot really play these skins up to 11 and do something unique with them, because I think they have a good concept, it just wasn't quite polished. Following up Empyrean was Space Groove, and I'm very happy Space Groove came back so fast, because that means it probably sold very well. It's one of those skin lines that's great because it knows exactly what aesthetic it's going for, and doesn't apologize for it, right? Snow Moon apologized. Snow Moon did nothing but apologize when it came out, saying, oh my god, I'm so sorry for existing. Space Groove says, I'm Space Groove, and I don't care if you like me or not. I'm doing what I want to do, and if you like me, great. And that's what makes Space Groove so great. And I think all of the inclusions this year fit that to a T. I love every single design. It's a little bit weird that Lissandra got a full-on Space Groove skin, since she's supposed to be like the big bad of the skin line, as opposed to in like the lore or whatever. But it works because there was a justification for it. And I think all these skins are excellent. The Tina Legendary is a little bit weird though. His like weirdly long arms are just offsetting to me, but I like that we have a more lighthearted Teemo Legendary to go alongside Omega Squad, which is quite nice. Finally, we have Winterblessed, the final skin line of this year, and if you look above, honestly, with the seasonal skin line that looks to replace the existing simple skin line with a more mature thematic, right? Like, that's all Winterblessed is. Winterblessed is an excuse to try and replace the older, like, Snow Day skins with something that's, like, more mature and dark, and something you can use all year round, and I think it's alright as an aesthetic, but I'm just not sold on it. I feel like it doesn't have any more broad appeal than like the obviously Christmas-inspired skins. I feel like people still aren't going to use this outside of the winter months, and I think that the designs, they're almost a little too gaudy. Winterblessed seems like it really wanted to play into the more mature side of winter, and instead we just got some really boringly average skins. The Diana Legendary, I think, is really cool. The weird thing is it's not paired with the Leona one, which, like, Leona and Diana haven't been in a single skin line together, if you guys have been paying attention. I don't know what that's about, but the skin individually is cool. Winterblessed Diana is pretty cool, but the rest of them are just meh. And that is going to be it. That is all of these skin lines released this year. You guys will have to let me know what you think of all these skin lines down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, especially if you had one in particular that's your pet favorite or that you would love to see come back. Let me know all that down in the comments, and congratulations on you for making it to the end of the video. I know this was a long one. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.